Hello, I'm Nathan Judo. I'm here with Shrewsbury Town reporter Mr. Lewis Cox. Lewis, John Askey, plenty of stories about him in the last few weeks, but the club have come out and backed him yesterday.
Yeah, well, yesterday it all sort of blew up, didn't it, with a report in the Sun newspaper claiming that the club wanted to sack John Askey, and the only issue that was stalling that was over a severance package that they couldn't agree. Now, you know, that moved on quickly, didn't it, when Brian Caldwell, Town's chief executive, came out with a club video and absolutely hammered the national newspaper, absolutely said sort of fabrication, pack of lies. It's extremely harsh extremely blunt, extremely strong comment from Brian Caldwell, saying it was malicious, no truth, fabrication. You know, it said there was no truth in any of it at all, which you know, suggests that the pressure on Askey that the Sun was suggesting isn't there. You know, there's not as much pressure as they're saying, which, you know, I read it and I think fans have, and probably the manager would feel it if he sees the Caldwell comments, is that they're backing him, that they've come out and with a public, you know, not your classic vote of confidence because they're responding to an article, but they've got his back, and that's a good thing for the manager, of course, ahead of, you know, a banana skin the weekend against Salford on Sunday. But yeah, I think it was really noticeable how Brian Caldwell came out and, you know, defended his manager from these claims. He was very strong, and you know, obviously you've got to believe what the chief exec's come out and said, and especially when he's come out in those terms and slammed the paper for its comments.
But if you do get beat on Saturday Sundays to a non-league team in Salford, then would that stance change significantly, or do you feel that, you know, this is something more long term?
Yeah, well, you know, last weekend, you know, when Askey said it was do or die, when they went to lowly house or Wimbledon and they got the win, you know, you think, you know, Brian Caldwell after that game went on the radio and said, you know, patience, forget last season, this is about patience, and showed backing, you know, last minute win at Wimbledon, the players are still fighting for the manager on that front. Then, you know, things were sailing along this week, looking to the FA Cup, and then this report comes out in the Sun and blows things up a bit, but the club have moved to squash that as best they could, and I personally think, you know, it's a massive banana skin, Salford. Now we know it's not David v Goliath, as I've said a few times, not non-league against Premier League. You know, these are two clubs on the face of it that there's 33 places between them and two divisions, but, you know, budget-wise, players they can attract-wise, you know, good players from League One have gone and signed for Salford. Good players from the Scottish Prem have gone to sign for Salford. You know, so I think they're on a fairly even playing field, despite what Salford play week in, week out. Yeah, of course, Town are still favourites, and there'll still be masses of pressure, and the fans will go absolutely ballistic if they get knocked out of the FA Cup to Salford. I do wonder, after the Wimbledon win, after Brian Caldwell's comments, whether they're willing to you know, not make this do or die again and give him more time in the league to try and build on that league win, to try and progress in the league. They're 18th in the league. They're 3 points from 14th. You know, there's a tight little area there in the league, and they've got games against Rochdale, against teams around them in the league. But, you know, for the immediate kind of reaction with fans, you know, he needs to start building the trust of fans, for fans to get on his side, to like him. Obviously, the last thing he wants is to go out of the FA Cup at the first hurdle at a team from the conference. You know, best respect to Salford, they're still in the National League, and, you know, it'd just be another thing that won't go for him, will it, when people are trying to judge him, when fans are judging John Askey's reign. You know, you talk about indifferent league form, inconsistency, strange selections and subs, and all the, you know, different formations and all that. People just mention, oh, they lost to Salford in the FA Cup. You know, they went all the way to West Ham, as we went to last season, and great memories in recent years. You know, you can't afford to go out to Salford. But I do think, you know, as we've seen this week on a couple of occasions, the board have got his back. That's what they've come out and said. So we believe that, and they've got his back, and I think they'll give him, you know. Of course, it depends how Sunday goes. You know, Salford can't rock up and turn Shrewsbury over, because that could get nasty, you know, in the stadium, or the response. But I think, you know, Askey's earned himself with that league win last weekend another couple of cracks at the whip.
Big game for Shrewsbury, big game for John Askey. For all the latest Salop news, make sure you log on to shropshirestar.com.